Are you looking for a way to make your watercolors more vibrant? Are you wanting your watercolor style look fresher, cleaner, more alive? Are you wanting your colors to look more vibrant and fresh and crisp? That's why I love hot press paper. And in today's tutorial, I'm going to share some of my best tips on how to be successful with this paper. Hi everyone, welcome back to Rachel's Studio. And my name is Rachel Parker Varner, for those of you new to my channel. And I like to talk about not just the how, but the why of watercolor, so you move along your painting journey a lot faster. Come join my community on Facebook, where you can post your paintings and get feedback, and also give feedback to others or ask watercolor questions and get to know us and learn from my community. It's really great, very supportive community. We have a great time there. You can follow me for free on Patreon too. And you can follow me on my community tab here on YouTube. I post there a lot too. In today's tutorial, we're going to talk about 5 tips on how to be more successful with hot press paper. Hot press paper is notoriously difficult for beginners. Why is that? Because it's hard to blend. It shows every single brush stroke unless you use some of my tips. And so cold press almost blends for you. Hot press makes you work for it. But it's not hard work if you learn the tricks. So here's a painting on cold press, and here's a painting on hot press. This is Stonehenge hot press paper. This is arches. Some people call it arches, but it's Arch cold press watercolor paper. This is hot press by Stonehenge. Stonehenge, by the way, is my favorite hot press paper that I've found. The reason why I love hot press is it helps me loosen up. But historically, hot press has been the favorite paper of botanical illustrators. You know, the Smithsonian style botanical paintings that are really tight and really detailed. Because this paper has such a smooth surface, you can get really tiny details. So a lot of people who paint tight love painting on this paper, but I love it for painting loose and impressionistic and dreamy. So these tips are going to kind of lean towards painting in a looser, more dreamy style. So let's take a look at these tips. All right, my first tip is to paint on wet or damp paper, some semblance of wet or damp paper if you want any blending to occur, any smoothness in your brush strokes at all. If you paint on hot press paper, on dry hot press paper, that brush mark is going to almost immediately have hard edges, and it's going to be hard to fix that, quote unquote. It is fixable, but you gotta be fast, real fast. So if you want a big wash of smooth color that blends together, it's beautifully like cold press easily does, or you want soft details or soft edges, you've got to paint on damp or wet paper. There's all levels of wet or damp paper. There's puddling, then there's glistening, then there's buckling, where the water has been on the paper for a little bit and is absorbing into the water. So that's buckling or damp paper. And then there's dry. I like to paint somewhere between glistening and damp stage on this paper because it helps my paint blend and blur together and have soft edges. Okay, tip number 2. This is what I love about it. If you put a milk consistency paintbrush full of paint on wet cold press, it will bloom out a lot. But on the same level of dampness on hot press, it will be soft, but it will hold its shape. I love that. So my second tip is to get really soft edges, paint on damp paper, and you'll get these beautiful soft edges, but your paint will stay more in the place where you put it instead of blooming out like crazy on cold press. Now, if you just have to paint on drier cold press paper for that. All right, my next tip with hot press, this is the other thing that I love. I'm painting a picture for my $30 Patreon level tier. In fact, I can show you. So this is a painting that I'm trying to do. This might be a study or it might be the final painting. I haven't decided, but there's a lot of dark edges right up against light edges where the light is hitting Parker really beautifully. And so to get some of these soft edges, what I did is I lifted them out while they were still damp. So that's another thing that I love to do with hot press paper is lift out edges. So let me show you how I did this edge on his arm and got a really soft yet still very defined edge. All right, the other way I love to lift out on this paper is to let my paint completely dry and set. And then after it is set, I like to lift out edges. And this paper, this Stonehenge, more than I think Hahnemühle, the collection hot press, allows you to lift out, I think, even better than cold press. This is the difference between cold press and hot press. With cold press, like Arch cold press, you can lift out you can scrub it with a stiff scrubber. Hot press won't allow you to do that. You have to lift out on hot press with a softer brush. So in fact, it's laying right here on the floor. See, that's a good thing to be messy, right? My favorite brush that I use is this. It's called an angled shader. This is a Princeton Velvet Touch angular shader. I do believe it's a acrylic painting brush, but other stiffer synthetic brushes will work. You don't have to have this exact brush. The point is that any acrylic painting or synthetic, even watercolor brush that has a little bit of spring to it and is a little stiffer than, a floppy natural hair watercolor brush will be enough to lift on hot press papers. All right, another tip that I found painting this very delicate painting. Lots of places were delicate. When I did lift, it's how like a snow plow comes through and pushes snow off the road, but all that snow piles up on the side. Sometimes, especially if you're scrubbing out really dark areas with a lot of paint in that area, that same kind of thing will happen. The paint will move, but then it just settles in a clump next to where you lifted, and it doesn't look good. So what I found works beautifully is take a super soft brush. So I have these two brushes. This is an Alvaro Castagnet brush. It's a more expensive brush, but it's the equivalent of a soft mop brush. And then that's not it. Then this is a 3/4 oval by Silver Black Velvet. Let's put these paintings back behind me. All right, that looks better. These are really soft brushes, so I load them up full of water. And after my paint is set and dried, I do my lifting with a wet brush, and then I immediately go in with one of these super soft, drippy paint brushes with clean, clear water and just swish it over the whole area, and it just resettles all that paint, and it looks really beautiful. So that is a great thing that I used a lot when I was painting this portrait of Parker on hot press. And by the way, this painting will be available as a $30 tier level painting because I'm going to try to enter this in a national show. So I'm sharing my process of painting for a national show, painting something that's at the level of a commission, a professional commission, or a professional painting that you want to enter into a national show. So that's on my $30 tier. So be sure to check that out. All right, I want to show you one more thing that I did on hot press paper with this Parker painting that I really loved that I was able to do. So look at his ear. Do you see how it looks like it has a lot of hard edges and it's not very soft and it has a lot of detail, but do I want people really looking at his ears? No, I don't. So where you have a lot of detail and hard edges, you're gonna draw the viewer's eye. I'm gonna swish over it with clean water. I'm using my 8 round, which is a little bit of a stiffer brush, but not very. This is a Silver Black Velvet size 8 round. And see how it just subtly softens everything in that area by running a very wet brush over the super dry area. Now your paint has to be super dry and set before you can swish over it like this. And now I'm gonna take I love how this looked. I'm gonna paint some Holbein Opera right over the ear, across the boundary to kind of dreamify it out, almost like there's a motion blur there or there's just a soft movement there. And I loved how this looked when it dried too. The Holbein Opera dried beautifully on top of this green layer, and all the colors just glowed and vibrated together. And this is called optical mixing, by the way, in watercolor. When you paint a layer, let it dry, paint another layer to change the color. And It's a great way to not create mud, but also have all these colors kind of vibrating together. So I loved how this hot press responded to this technique. I just want to show you what this looks like as it dries. I just painted the pillow and I've got it tilted up so the darks in this area will kind of gently flow up into the light and kind of paint my gradient for me. In a couple minutes I can probably tilt it back and just let it settle in, but I just want to let it dry like this, and then the paint will slowly move this way to kind of go from thicker paint to thinner paint and smooth itself out because of gravity, not because of any of my skill. Don't you love that about watercolor? It just interacts with the physical forces and the laws of the world, of the physical laws of nature, create beautiful things if you just let them alone. Put things in place and then let the water and the paint dance together. Unlike any other medium. What other medium does that? I just love that. And if you just want a sample of my tutorials, you can go to rachelstudio.com/beginner bunny, and that's a real-time start to finish. And I think it's a pretty good tutorial, and it's a good, it'll give you a good taste of how I do my tutorials and how much information is packed into each and every one. So you can start there if you just want to try one of my tutorials for free. And I would love for you to do that. But anyway, be sure to go binge the rest of my content to learn not just the how, but the why of watercolor painting so you progress faster on your watercolor journey. Now go watercolor your world. Bye, everybody.